What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Total Disclosure by Pop Culture Corner. Ooh, God. Just binged a whole, well, I guess it was already 4 episodes, but there's a new series on Netflix called Ancient Apocalypse by Graham. Dude, I always forget. I always call him Graham Bell, but it's Graham Hancock. And this guy has been labeled a pseudoscientist, a pseudo archaeologist, but in real life, he calls himself an investigative journalist. He's been on the Joe Rogan experience, and you guys know I like that show. Before we get into that, guys, all that is the main thing, but there's a couple side stories. First being the Area 51 researcher who got his home raided, 2 homes raided, one in Rachel and one in Las Vegas at the same time, which is kind of fishy if you think about it. And then there's some other stories about some sightings and stuff that we can get into, and correlations with other things, and Dr. Greer and stuff like that. So before we get into it, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and if you want to support the channel further, become a member. If you want to check the links in the description below, we have all the sponsors like TubeBuddy and Movie Palette. Get your favorite movie scene and movie in on canvas, and bring your main room or a man cave together. So I'm joined tonight by the man, the myth, the Elvis legend, Lil Pup Tart. What's up, dude? So you didn't get to watch the show,
Not yet.
so we're pretty much gonna spoil the whole thing.
Spoil me, bro. I like to be spoiled.
Well, so
Usually not on shows, but go ahead.
so here's the thing. So this series that is on Netflix right now by Graham Hancock is similar to Ancient Aliens in a way that the basis of what they're talking about is how we don't have the information correct as of right now. So they both start from a very, very similar stance, right? In saying that the mainstream science and historical societies are not open to being challenged nor wrong about what they perceive as being the history or the scientific fact about the world that we live in and the universe that we live in. And when challenged, they tend to play dirty. And who does this remind you of? It reminds me of the church back with Galileo, and how they weren't even willing to be challenged that the earth was not the center of the universe. You know, knowing that the instrument was available to look through and to see and to gain the evidence necessary to change beliefs, to accept that you're wrong. That's a big part of the human experience, in my opinion. So if we don't leave things open to the scientific process and to peer review, then what's that say? Well, that says that we're probably living like the church did back then, right? And we're just arrogantly going to ride off into the abyss and kill ourselves.
Yeah, I think way too much of this subject specifically, bro, is spent on debating whether or not something's true. Well, you can debate whether or not anything is real or true or this or that, but why not? And obviously, there's always that question. Okay, is this real or not? We need to move past that, and if we're as long as we're not dealing with known hoaxers or known fake people, we're not even like looking into or new people or we watch pretty reliable credible people, right? Both of us. We don't go for the real out there outlandish abduction stories and all these outlandish stories. So we focus on the military, the most credible people, at least people like you and I, and most you know you know common researchers in the UFO community. So we need to stop spending so much time on you know well, is this real or is this fake? And say, well, if it is real, then let's look at it from that perspective. And that's how I've been ever since I made my contact with Greer. Every time I can watch a 3 hour Greer presentation and
Well,
not be questioning, is he telling the truth or not? And I can just take it in and absorb it all as factual information and then apply it to real life. And
yeah, what's funny is everyone ridiculed, and you know me, I'm not a big supporter of Greer specifically,
Yeah,
but he was talking about right after or before the Theories of Everything podcast he went on. He had made an announcement that there was 4 technologies in the works
yeah,
that were going to change the course of human history,
yeah.
and you know a lot of people attacked him, said it was okay. This is just for you to sell your next documentary, to crowdfund it, yada yada yada. And honestly, part of me was like, probably, that's probably true. And now a corroborating story comes out of the Joe Rogan experience, where Graham and this other guy, I don't remember his name right off the top of my head, but they're also talking about how there's legitimately in the background right now happening. Patents are being filed. Open sourcing is being prepared for, at the minimum, 2 technologies. One being worked on by Mazda that would bring the efficiency of uh, fossil fuel in like things like cars from 30% to 80%, which drastically reduces how much you need. Which it's just that would fundamentally change the
Yeah,
game, and that would be a starting point.
that's good. It's headed the right direction.
Right. And these things, now there are some people that say you cannot, the temperature that you would need to get it up to is not something that the
Yeah.
internal temperature of like I think it's 17 17 something.
Well, there's always
um
issues. You think the fucking scientists like Babazar haven't had issues and haven't had to shelve these technologies for years and years and even decades before technology catches up? That's what's been going on for decades. It's always mystery. It's not even a mystery. There's always some sort of problem. You know what I'm saying, that you have to solve. But every problem is solvable though. There's
so let
always
me
a solution.
let me ask you a question. Put aliens on the docket for a minute,
Yeah.
right? Put extraterrestrials on the docket, on the
Right.
shelf for just a couple of seconds. But
Hey, I did just a
um
minute ago, literally put this guy up
what
there. I literally did just a minute ago.
invader, the
Yeah.
invader. um Listen, do you think that history, the way that we get taught in high school, through public schools or whatever you went to, god
Yeah.
damn it, it's the more I think about it, the more different types of schooling there are and the more things I have to say. But in schooling in general, the way history is taught, do you think that we have it mostly correct, or do you think that there's a huge missing piece, and that something is either being actively maybe covered up, because they don't want you to know too much about, um, maybe who was a part of it, or what, like, why don't we know our
History.
history? Why don't
Yeah.
we know our beginnings? How is it that we have such an amnesia when it comes to the start, and I get it, right? Writing and documentation doesn't start till a certain period, so anything before then is word of mouth, right? But that's where the song, they people wrote songs or hymns, or like they did other things to kind of, like the Dogon tribe, right?
Or even the hieroglyphs. You know what I mean?
Well,
To tell way to
The
tell
Dogon
stories.
tribe is very, very unique in the sense that they don't have a written language.
Hmm.
All of their stories and history are told through song and celebration. So you know, you think that, okay, that would probably be something that happens before you get to a written language,
Yeah.
right? Is something to that nature. So
Yeah.
is that proof that maybe we don't have it exactly right?
I
Why are there pyramids all over the world,
Yeah, so
right?
much, bro. I don't think it's one thing that's been missing or one thing that's been wrong, or one thing that's been covered up. I think it's all the above, and you know, history is written by the winners. That's what they say. History
This
is
is very
written
true.
by the winners, and
Did you know?
all the history I learned was about white people. 99.9%. This, I went to private school, Lutheran school, most of my life, and then switched to um, public school in about fifth grade. But still, it was all the same. We learned about the same people.
Yeah, did you know that? So when, at least this is how it gets told. So the Spanish conquistadors when they invaded the Aztec, I think it was one of the Mayan that area.
Yeah,
I can't remember exactly all the details, but when they took over, they pretty much wiped out an entire.
yeah,
They took the gold and then everything else. They destroyed everything. So not only did they destroy that part of history, but whatever came before that that allowed those civilizations to build upon that, all of that was lost as well. So who's to say that how many times that hadn't happened to us? What why is Atlantis talked about? Where did Atlantis go? If it was real, where is it? Um, you know, there are so many fundamental things,
yeah.
mysteries about this world that I don't think anyone should be able to say I have it correct.
No.
Not until not until we can really vindicate that
Yeah.
with proof.
And for the record, I've never once heard Dr. Greer say that he has all the answers on anything or, anything like that effect. He's a very, he's not an egotistic guy. Um, but as far as the ancient history, yeah, bro, I think the only way that we will be able to learn the real truth about humanity, is from CE5, from making contact with these ETs, and whatever, civilization that you make contact with, they most likely have a file of Earth, of humanity, its entire history that they can telepathically
That'd be
send to you,
convenient.
which that is our next form of communication. Right now we have social media and
That's if we
speed of
get there.
light. We will, bro. I mean, so many of us have already been making telepathic contact communication with ETs, et cetera, and so many
You
people
really think
are there's people
at
ahead of
this
me
rate?
about this, bro. I don't consider myself a CE5 expert by any means. I haven't had a contact in almost a year, right? But the ones that I had were so vivid, so fucking, you know, I don't even know the word, intense, that they changed my life forever. So I know people today are still having contact every day. I follow them on Facebook and stuff.
You really think at the rate that we are progressing right now, we would ever get to a point where we could telepathically communicate? I think at on the track record on the track we're on right now,
Yeah, obviously right
I
now
don't think we get there.
we're headed down a really bad path, and we have been long before we were born.
Uh,
We've been headed down this path. Really since 1956 is when the government split into two, and the presidency was decapitated, so to speak. And that's when the birth of the military-industrial complex was really formed and took on a whole new life of its own.
yeah. I listen. I could talk for days about that specifically,
Yeah,
but in the sense of the spirit of the show,
it's
um,
ancient.
let's watch this the Joe Rogan clip with where they discuss these technologies. I brought it right to the part where they start talking about it, and then
Yeah,
we can kind of that way you have something to base this
yeah.
talk off
I
of.
love I love Joe Rogan too. So
Because I thought you were gonna watch it from because they're only 30 minutes. So Graham, by the way, who authored Magicians of the Gods and has been labeled, like I said, a pseudoscientist and a pseudo archaeologist. His new series, Ancient Apocalypse, is now on Netflix, streaming in 8 parts at roughly 30 minutes apiece. It's more like 4 hour long episodes. So, it's like an extended film. Like it's in the way that it ties in, very, very um, visually pleasing. Like it's easy to watch because of the way that they present it. And each episode rolls into one another in a very elegantly and uh, uh, um, I don't know, kind of flawless way. Like he'll end one episode by like, and next we're gonna talk about the pyramids of Giza, and then and then it ends, and then the next one starts. So it kind of hypes you up, and you can't stop,
it's
right?
stimulating, bro, and stimulation is a big part of life and humanity, and we have to be stimulated in order to really
Yeah. So
be
I thought it
happy.
was I thought it was really well done, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah,
Again, the subject matter, of course, like if you're a mainstream scientist, you're gonna get pissed. and you're gonna be like, oh, there's
Grass
no,
Tyson,
yeah, like the Neil deGrasse Tysons, they're gonna hate this.
Michio Kaku. I can't pronounce his name.
No,
Michio Kaku.
Michio is not a bad guy.
He's not. I mean, neither is Neil deGrasse Tyson.
He's a no. Michio is at least willing to accept the clear indicator that there's life in this universe and it's teeming with life.
But he thinks
He
we
just
shouldn't
doesn't
try to
think that we
contact
know
it.
what it is yet.
And he says that we shouldn't contact it, that it's going to kill humanity if we try to contact aliens. He said that on
Yeah, well, at least he thinks they're real.
big platform
like,
ever.
You know, Neil spent his whole life talking about theoretical black holes and has never seen one.
Now he's trying to do backflips to fucking, well, UFO doesn't actually mean it's aliens. Like, oh, good one.
I like how like personal and butthurt you get about it.
Bro, it is personal. Like, fuck, this is humanity. This is our life. It's not just like, oh, I like, Elvis or something. Like, you're dissing fucking like my favorite artist. Like, this is like, you're dissing a fucking and the entire universe. Like, besides humanity. Like, oh no, I know that the universe is 5 billion trillion miles long, like my fucking dick, and blah blah blah. And he thinks he knows all the fucking answers because he knows numbers and blah blah blah. And that's how fucked up the world is.
Well, you'd think the people that do know the numbers would be the ones qualified to tell you about our surrounding and our.
I like people that
stay true.
I like people that make things simple, that put things into simple terms and make things simple and easy to understand.
Well, here's something simple.
Scientists aren't always good at that. Some scientists, just even like Bob Lazar, he tries to talk really simple and put things in simple terms, and he's good at it. Greer, not so much. He kind of, he explains things to really detail and doesn't say aliens. He's really specific and shit like that.
Yeah, Greer Greer could talk for literally 22 hours in a straight.
I know, and everything he says is like fucking credible, bro. I promise, I've not found one thing to where I've just been able to disprove.
Well, others have, so we'll just say that. Others think they have. That's why I stay on the fence about it, because you say this, right?
No one's right all the time, shit.
Yeah, but then again, that's why we have to. I stay out of a pledge. I pledge allegiance to myself, and then figuring
enough
it out.
Of the shit that I've learned is true, though, is enough for everyone that I talk to, at least, to like at least and look for yourself, see if I'm wrong, because I promise I'm not. But no one can believe it unless they see it, right? Just like me, I wasn't gonna believe Greer or anyone about any of this shit, especially contact and whatever, until I made contact with my own eyes. No video was ever gonna do it for me.
Yeah, well, let's get into the Randall. So it's Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock. So Randall is the other. So Randall's the one that you can see now.
I've never heard of him. The other guy, the Graham Hancock, his name sounds familiar. I think I've heard of him before, maybe.
Yeah, he's one of those like guys that you hear about every couple of years.
Of talking to some of these people over the last 6 or 7 years, and right now, as we're speaking, there's a group of people who are basically going to open source a whole lot of stuff in the next 3 months, so it can never get suppressed again. And that's why I'd like to come back and talk in more detail.
Well, I'd love to have you come back and talk about it, but we got to talk about it a little bit now.
Yeah, that's why I love Joe.
Okay, well, there's a laboratory right now in the Maldives that's been building prototypes using these technological principles, which are based on implosion rather than explosion.
Explosion, yes.
And the inspiration for this.
Tesla's ideas are part of it. I think you mentioned
Tesla's ideas.
So the one that they're talking about right now, the Maldives, the car company Mazda is the one that's actually working on this. So instead of the engines and stuff that we think about, right? Yeah. That all work off of igniting of some sort of propellant and using the energy that is produced from the chemical that chemical what do they call it?
Burning the
chemical. What are they? When two chemicals mix? God damn it! It's high school science. Well, you know what I mean. So the chemical reaction of when the propulsion the whatever is lit on fire, that tremendous amount of energy is what's used to propel whether it's like for guns, it's a bullet, for cars and gasoline, it's all combustion and an explosion. What they're talking about is the opposite. So I think this is very cool.
Are very much a part of it. Yes, Tesla's ideas are very much a part of it. So is, I don't know if you ever, Victor Schauberger, who did the work with water and discovered, look at, Jamie, could you look up Victor? Oh, I have the cable now, don't I?
Take it back. Let me find it.
Well, no. Let me pull something up here, and
I think the key thing is we're looking at technologies that are not the same as ours.
Yes.
And that's partly
that's
why archaeologists can't see them, because they're looking for us in the past and they're not open to the possibility that there are whole other kinds of technology that could be used.
Right.
I always go back to the ancient Egyptian traditions that speak of priests chanting as these huge blocks were lifted into the air. Were they using some kind of sound effect, some kind of use of sound that was able to manipulate matter? We know that sound can manipulate matter, as a matter of fact, but they're lifting these blocks. Again and again, it appears in ancient Egyptian traditions. The notion that we could lift huge blocks with sound seems absurd to archaeologists, and yet it's there in the traditions of the Egyptologists. And what Randall's talking about now is people who are working on a whole alternative path of technology, and maybe that's a rediscovery of the kind of technologies that were used by a lost civilization.
I think that's what's important about what you're saying, is that we have this very limited idea of technology based on what we've experienced.
Yeah.
But if you had anatomically similar human beings that lived for thousands and thousands of years,
Stuff just keeps on getting older.
If you think about the amount of progress that we've achieved as modern humans just in the last few hundred years,
that's
you
what's
go back
crazy.
400 years to now, it's a stunning amount of achievement.
Absolutely stunning.
And if you have a completely different path of technology, one that's not utilizing internal combustion.
Think about this real quick. Someone said this one time and I thought it was brilliant. If you put all of history in a book, right? Like say 100-page book, the last turn of the technological age would be the last sentence in the last page in the last chapter.
I heard that too.
Right? Like we're barely, we're talking about a blip in the grand scheme of things, and how far we've been, and we've quadrillion, 1,000%, tenfold we've achieved advancement.
Coincidentally, after 1947.
Right. So
what happened that year?
Literally, we're on the last sentence, and it blows my mind that this is I guess that's how it would happen. It wouldn't be gradual, as gradual as some people ideally would think, because I feel like as a being who creates, you are truly never satisfied.
Once you get started, you can't let the genie back in the bottle. So
right. I think that's really where human ambition lies. Why we go to work every day. Why we are consumers rather than hunter gatherers.
A lot of it's brainwashing, I think, bro. I think we,
myself included, why do you always go so weird?
I think that we've just been brainwashed into society, into thinking everything we do, whether it's McDonald's, this, that, the other, so many things that we do, we know are unhealthy, we know are not good for the environment, or not, smart to do, and we still do them every day.
Well, I think that is more or less something that's sucks, because it's almost like saving money for your future. It's easy to talk about, it's harder to do it, and to actually.
I know. I want to go vegan. I want to go vegan, but I know it's going to be the fucking hardest thing in the world. So I'm just like procrastinating, putting it off. You know what I'm saying? But I really want to.
Changing one's habits is very, very. I've
say-
done it several times.
They say you can make
Engines
better contact.
and
if you don't
cranes
use
Yeah,
it.
I don't
the
know.
like
Test that
that
theory
we
out.
experience today.
Leverage, mechanical
Yeah.
advantage, everything that our tech is based around.
Something that's insanely advanced, tens of thousands of years of a different path.
Yeah.
And that may be what we're looking at.
And that may begin to explain these otherwise inexplicable monuments that have survived.
Jamie, do I need? There we go.
Like they say,
This
the
is the work of
pyramids could have
Nikola
had
Tesla.
gold on the outside of them.
And he
They,
was.
they say that they were
Again,
like
this
all
is way
white.
too much for
and
us
they
to
had
get
gold
into
on the
today. That's
top.
why we need
Yeah.
to devote a whole
Like something crazy looking.
session to
Okay.
talking about this.
Okay.
But this is this was the inspiration. You know, his work was suppressed.
Planetary
A
power
lot of his
plant.
patents were.
Can you guys see that?
were taken,
Oh, man.
sealed up by the U.S. government for whatever reason.
That's
I don't
teeny
know.
tiny.
But this is some of the stuff that's now being developed using his ideas plus some of the others. This is the man I've been talking to for the last 7
Plasmoid
years.
planetary
Malcolm Bendall?
power.
Yes.
Jesus, that's a mouthful.
And again, I don't want to get into it today, but like, here's an example of what they're doing. This is a generator that has no moving parts. It's all based on geometry, pure geometry.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the basic idea.
So
'cause
do you-
I think I understand it at this point.
It's alternative
Resonance
energy
frequencies.
sources, bro.
Everything vibrates.
That's
Have
just
you
what
ever,
Greer's been talking
like
about.
if we had an electric razor, we
Whether
plugged it in, turned it on,
One of the
set it on
machines
this
works
table,
or not, the idea,
it's going to move around.
the
Have
idea will
you seen
work.
that?
Yeah.
Someone will.
That's the beginning of the
It'll do this.
concept because it's vibrating. Everything vibrates at a frequency. And if you know that frequency, you can control things. And I think that's the basic idea of what we're looking at here. And it's all based upon the ancient numbers. And they're developing technologies right now, and they have been. I was recently contacted and
This is
given
huge,
the go
by
ahead
the
that I
way.
could talk. I've been sitting on this for 7 years without talking about it because
Ooh.
they asked me not to talk about it until they had their patents in place and their licensing. That's all happened
So
since
that-
last summer. So we're now free to talk.
So this is this is what I like about this, and this is like the moral of why I really wanted to bring it up, is because the way I've always thought about it is, why isn't there a group of people, like if there's a group of people out there that are actively covering something up or hiding something or trying to at least keep the world the way it is, running on fossil fuels, and challenges anything that comes up. Why isn't there a group of people that are like secretly working on it in the background and, you know, like the heroes of the story, right? Like let's call them for what they are. And you know, it kind of flabbergasted me, and it shows you kind of what humanity was about. You know, all these years in the UFO community, you always get talked about the cover up and suppression, and it's always like the bad guy story, and the mystery, the allure of it all. But
The truth
where
embargo.
where are the heroes? And it finally sounds like they're gonna be something of a huge breakthrough, hopefully, and it's been worked on secretly and pushed through the back door almost, and doing exactly what Greer talked about, right? The one thing Greer always said is open source, open source, open source.
That's why
right?
it was scaring me, him talking about it. I was like, shit, have they already fucking got this shit open source? Because if not, they're gonna fucking hear this interview. I said, I'm like, the feds are gonna be listening to this shit, so they'll look through his fucking call list and see every contact he's got in his phone. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
so
that's
hopefully
why
they're
I
smart enough
also-
that they've already open sourced it and released it, compartmentalized it to enough people. You know what I'm saying? But maybe not. Greer always says that people make the
Well-
same predictable mistakes, no matter if they have $100 million or what. They always think that they'll do it like this or this or this, and it always ends up the same.
Well, it sounds like if Greer is keyed in on this, so now let me break it down at least the way I thought about it.
Yeah, yeah.
If Greer is keyed in on it,
Mhm.
and he had mentioned it about a month ago at the minimum, right? Because we just heard about it a month ago from him. That doesn't mean he didn't find out about it that day. So he had probably known about it for a while and is involved to some capacity. There are other people like these guys. This guy says, I've been sitting on this information for 7 years. So is this part of a larger network of people that have pushed this so far into so many people's laps that it possibly couldn't get taken down? Because, they've worked it through so many people that yes, the open source
Bro.
model has worked
I mean,
finally.
they shot the fucking president, bro. They shot John F. Kennedy
You
in
cannot
broad
prove any of
daylight,
this.
bro.
There's not,
It was
you
on
can't say
video.
that. You can't say that on YouTube because you're
Okay.
gonna get us deplatformed.
He was assassinated for a reason. Most likely it was for this topic. Whatever, the
You can't.
details, whatever the detail, that's just my speculation. Obviously, that's speculation, 100%. But I truly believe 100% it had something. Maybe not even entirely. Maybe it was 1% had to do with UFOs, and the other 99% had to do with Russia or something else. But I don't think that it was just a fucking random murder. I don't think it was just a random killing, bro. I think that it was most
You
likely.
got to form it in the word of a question. Did
Yeah, I know. I didn't
the
really ask a question
president?
there. What do you
Yes.
think? What do you think is the reason that JFK was killed?
I don't know, and I wouldn't even begin to know. Do I think it could potentially have some?
I think the government knows.
Yeah, I
Some of
think they
them.
know way. I think they are at least complicit in the knowledge of, and maybe it's embarrassing. Maybe that's at the root of everything. The root of the
I think
UFO issue, the root
biggest
of
secret,
all of
bro.
it.
Yeah, and I think that was them showing their power. I don't think it was the. Like I said, there's two governments, so obviously, it wasn't our government that we see on TV or whatever. But we know that there's a black government. We also know that these oil companies and these trillion-dollar industries those are the ones running it, and they have shills in the patents office, etc. They have shills everywhere. They can afford to have people killed. You know what I'm saying? Even the president. And apparently, whenever Dr. Greer was meeting with one of Bill Clinton's staff, and they told him that they were afraid of Bill Clinton pushing any further on this issue because he would end up like Jack Kennedy, and he ended up laughing and thought it was a joke, but they were being serious.
That is
That
that
would
is
have been crazy.
a story that Greer
Imagine if
tells.
Bill Clinton would have been assassinated, and none of us would have known why. We have thought, oh, fucking random killing again, but it was because of the UFO issue. That would have been why, if it, you know what I'm saying.
And he was him and Hillary have been actively involved in it for, at least interested in it, which I think is
about
cool.
it, bro. If me and you had come across a bigger cover up in the United States government and the world, if there was a bigger cover up in America, we would know. I mean, we might not know about it, but so far this is the only one. Unless there was evidence of God, this is evidence of life outside Earth. So that's a huge subject, like the three biggest questions, and they've had the answer. So.
Yep. Well, information is power. If there's anything about the new world, if you want to call it that, the new world, technologically.
New world order.
No, not that. Very.
I don't like
that.
the new age or like the term.
So the new.
I don't like that term because that's.
So the technological age. If there's anything to say about it, it is that information is power, right? And it is what it is. Information is power. Power is money, and money is greed. And all these things are reflected in all of these conspiracies and stuff. So who's to say what's true and what's not?
So that's what I'm saying. I think it would be a good idea to get me back on here. We can look at it.
Simple,
I'm
bro.
going
It
to
all
lay
boils
this on
down to
Graham so
money.
he can look at it too,
Today,
because I really
oil,
want to get Graham's
energy,
feedback
all
on
down to money.
this.
I mean, would it be fair to say that there's an element of a rediscovery of a
Yes.
lost technology from the past?
I think it would be fair to say that. Yes.
And so through this technology, they're
So
able
some
to
other
move
civilization
stones or
had
cut
this
stones
technology
or all
at
the
one point.
above.
All the
I have a
above.
funny story,
And-
not a funny
and
story,
even
but a kind of
transport
weird
them?
story to tell after this.
Whoa,
Yes.
what is all this?
Well, this is the moth, and this is diagramming all the frequencies of the elements and what their vibrational frequencies are and the numbers that measure those frequencies. And they're all the numbers we get from looking at these ancient traditions that recur over and over and over again, that I've been talking about in my sacred geometry classes for decades without knowing what the final result was going to be. So this inventor who's working with this small group contacted me, and this is what he told me. He said, you built the foundation. He said, you laid the foundation with your work on ancient geometry, and I built a house on top of it.
I like
That's what he
that.
said.
Nice.
So for 7 years,
'Cause
he's
that's how
been
the pyramids
supplying me
built.
with all the information. I have copies of all the patents. I have videos of the testing of the prototypes. And Mazda, the car manufacturer in Japan, is getting ready to do a $25 million testing of some of these prototypes that they believe they can retrofit internal combustion engines with. And there's over 100,
That's what I was talking about
they've
earlier.
developed over 100 patents on some of this stuff. And it's amazing.
And what would be the fuel?
Well, plasmoids. Plasmoids, as it says here, are donut or toroidal-shaped clusters of net protons or net electrons that once captured and placed into a
I have no
toroidal
idea what
orbit
any of
are
that is.
capable of
Greer always
absorbing,
talks about a
storing, and
donut-shaped
releasing
like
enormous
energy
amounts
device,
of
but
energy
that's different.
within their self-generated and structured electromagnetic containment field. Plasmoids, in effect, function as an atomic battery that can be self-charging due to its ability to convert matter to available clean energy. So it's a lot to get into, and I think it would take us kind of off what we're here to talk about.
But
today.
At least what's promising is that there is some, at least research
Yep.
or understanding.
And it's actually quite mature at this point.
Mm.
And in order to avoid the kinds of fate that befell Tesla and Reich, Robert Oppenheimer, Victor Schauberger.
Yeah.
So aside
So
from
there's that.
three, I think, of the biggest events in human history, UFOs were present at, which is the death of Jesus Christ, the birth of Elvis Presley, and man's first walk on the moon. All three allegedly were observed